There are names that feel less like people and more like storms. Nikola Tesla is one of them. His name still sounds like a vibration, sharp, elusive, echoing like thunder over a world that has forgotten what lightning once meant. He was the man who wanted to give light without wires, energy without limits, knowledge without a price. A prophet of science, walking a line between myth and modernity, between madness and divinity. At the dawn of the 20th century, he seemed untouchable. He could command lightning, make towers sing, and turn night into day. To the public, he was a modern Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods not to rule, but to share. Newspapers called him the Wizard. Photographers begged for the shot of his silhouette surrounded by blue arcs of plasma. Bankers, magnates, and engineers leaned in as he made the invisible dance. He didn't just build machines, he conjured miracles. The Tesla coil, the induction motor, wireless transmission, each one a leap toward a future only he could see clearly. Electricity stopped being just power. It became spectacle. The world saw electricity as profit. Tesla saw it as freedom. He imagined cities glowing with clean energy pulled from the earth and the sky, a civilization unchained from fuel, ownership, and scarcity. And for a brief moment, it felt possible. He stood in Colorado Springs amid storms of his own making. Bolts taller than houses cracked the air as he stood calm in a ghostly blue halo, as if negotiating directly with the gods of nature. Headlines shouted, "Tesla creates artificial lightning, tames the fury of heaven." But behind every miracle, there was a silence no one heard, a whisper crawling beneath the applause. The same currents that filled his machines began to haunt his mind. Patterns, rhythms, sacred numbers. He walked around a block 3 times before entering, refused handshakes, dined alone at the same hour, counting steps, measuring breaths. To others, he was eccentric. To himself, he was precise. He believed the universe ran on frequency, and that if he tuned himself to it, he could unlock its deepest secrets. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He wasn't just building devices, he was trying to tune reality itself. But the world of factories, investors, and contracts had no patience for profits. They wanted meters, monopolies, and control. Edison, Morgan, Westinghouse, titans circled him like moths around a flame. They admired his brilliance. They feared his vision. A world where power was free was a world where empires would fall. In that tension, between genius and greed, Tesla's descent began. Not yet into ruin, but into solitude. He turned his gaze away from applause and deeper into the unseen. Wireless thoughts, global communication, energy through the air, even the transmission of consciousness itself. It was no longer invention, it was revelation. And revelation, in a world ruled by markets, is dangerous. He still stood at the height of his glory, the man who could summon light from darkness and believed, with almost childlike faith, that knowledge belonged to everyone. History remembers his inventions. What it forgets is the faith that powered them. He wanted to give light to the world. He never understood how much darkness that light would cast. Before there was the storm, there was a boy staring at lightning. Smiljan, 1856. A small village wrapped in superstition and prayer. The night Nikola was born, lightning struck near the house. A midwife whispered, "A child of the storm." His exhausted mother replied, "No, he will belong to the dark. From the beginning, his life was a struggle between heaven and earth. His father, Milutin, was a Serbian Orthodox priest, strict, eloquent, disciplined. He wanted Nikola to follow him into the church. His mother, Duka, was quiet, endlessly capable. She made her own tools, repaired things, invented little devices to ease housework. Tesla would later say that she was his first true teacher, proof that creation begins not in logic, but in vision. As a child, his mind rebelled against ordinary reality. He saw images so vividly they overwhelmed him, flashes of light in his head, whole machines appearing fully formed. He could spin them in his mind, test them, fix them, all before building anything. By 6, he could imagine a mechanism, run it mentally until it failed, adjust it, and only then touch metal. He didn't sketch, he remembered. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. But brilliance often grows beside loss. His older brother Dane, gifted and adored, died in a riding accident. Nikola saw it happen. A startled horse, a fall, then silence. The family changed. His father retreated into sermons. His mother moved through the house like a haunted shadow. Nikola became convinced the lightning had taken not just his brother, but part of his own soul. He began to dream of electric light, not the sun, but the harsh, pure brightness of a storm. Electricity became for him something divine, a force that could give life or take it away. At school, teachers mocked him. He stared at water wheels and windmills, mumbling about invisible currents. He was beaten for daydreaming, ridiculed for believing in the impossible. The ridicule hardened into hunger. He devoured books, from philosophy to physics. He experimented. Beetle-powered turbines, static shocks from cat fur, childish, dangerous prototypes of a mind that refused to stay on the ground. To classmates, he was strange. To himself, he was chosen. Then came cholera, 9 months near death. On his sickbed, his father promised if he survived, he could study engineering instead of theology. Nikola recovered, thin, shaking, but with a new conviction. In fever, he imagined energy not as destruction, but as harmony. Invisible fields where everything vibrated together. He formed a belief that would haunt his life. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries. He began to see beyond wires, beyond matter, into something metaphysical. But as his insight deepened, his distance from people grew. He avoided touch, walked alone for hours, counted his steps, traced patterns in the dirt, favored numbers divisible by 3. Others thought he was cursed. He thought he was attuned. He once wrote, "The gift of mental power comes from God, divine being." By the time he left for Graz to study electrical engineering, he carried 2 things: a mind that could visualize lightning, and a wound that would never fully close. His brother's death had taught him that life ends in a flash. So he made a vow. He would understand that flash, control it, and use it to challenge death itself. It was not ambition. It was penance. From then on, every spark he created would be an answer to the one that took Dane away. He had found his purpose and his curse. There is a kind of hunger that doesn't consume. It conducts. It turns a man into a wire for destiny. New York, 1884. A city of smoke and possibility, its streets glowing like constellations dragged to earth. Tesla stepped off the steamer with 1 suit, 4 cents, a poem, and a letter of introduction. In his mind, alternating current systems for an entire continent. He came to meet Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, a man who believed in heavy wires and direct current, in power that stayed close and could be tightly metered. Tesla entered Edison's office with sketches and conviction. He spoke of motors that ran smooth as a heartbeat, of currents that could travel vast distances, of systems designed for cities, not just streets. Edison listened like an accountant. DC had made him a king. AC sounded wild, abstract. Too Tesla. Still, talent is hard to ignore. Edison hired him, not to build dreams, but to repair disasters. Broken dynamos, failing plants, factories bleeding money into the dark. Tesla worked through the night, inside the carcasses of machines. He stabilized the system. Production soared. Then came the promise, fix everything, and you get $50,000. Tesla did it. When he asked to be paid, Edison laughed. "You don't understand our American humor." A joke to Edison, a fracture to Tesla. He quit. For a time, the man who dreamed of harnessing lightning dug ditches to lay Edison's cables. He carried shovels instead of equations, burying copper for a kingdom he no longer served. But storms replenished themselves. Investors, half curious, listened as Tesla described a new kind of motor, one that danced with alternating current, without sparks or commutators. In a small workshop, he built it, the induction motor, a cage holding a whirling, invisible field. He plugged it in. The rotor turned, shy at first, then with velvety certainty. "This changes everything," someone whispered. George Westinghouse heard. He bought Tesla's patents, offered partnership and money. For the first time in America, the future tilted in Tesla's direction. The war of currents began. On one side, Edison's DC, safe, local, and profitable. On the other, Tesla's AC, efficient, scalable, born to travel. Edison's men electrocuted animals in public to brand AC as a killer. They even proposed an electric chair using AC, a grotesque demonstration meant to make Tesla's system synonymous with death. Tesla responded differently. He stood on stage, let AC flow through his body, and lit lamps in his hands. He turned fear into grammar, electricity as a language to be understood, not a monster to be feared. Then came the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, 1893, the White City. Edison bid to light it with DC. Westinghouse, with Tesla's AC, bid lower. AC won. On opening night, President Cleveland pressed a switch. Darkness vanished. 200,000 lamps flared to life. The crowd gasped. Night had been conquered. Beneath that glow, Tesla demonstrated wireless light, tubes that glowed from a distance, coils that sang. He seemed to command the air itself. Headlines declared the triumph of AC. Niagara followed. Water turned into electricity, electricity into cities. The dream of harnessing the falls became reality, powered by Tesla's vision. This was his summit. The world now ran as he had imagined it. But success has an aftertaste, metallic, like ozone and pride. He began to believe that because his visions had cut through one darkness, they could cut through all the others. He saw beyond wires to the sky itself as a conduit. World wireless power, global communication, towers drinking energy from the earth and spraying it into the air. Investors smiled, then hesitated. They loved miracles they could meter. A miracle without a meter was heresy. Westinghouse fell into debt. Tesla's royalty contract threatened to crush the company that had believed in him. Tesla tore it up. It was nobility and a financial amputation. He walked away from a fortune that could have made him one of the richest men on earth. For a time, fame carried him. Salons, stages, front pages, the elegant foreigner who played with lightning. Then a new figure entered his story, J.P. Morgan, a man who didn't fund dreams, only monopolies. Tesla pitched him a global system, world wireless, towers sending power and messages across oceans. Morgan saw potential, if he could own it. Funding arrived. On Long Island, Wardenclyffe rose like a brick and timber prayer to the sky. Tesla believed he was no longer just building machines. He was tuning the entire planet to sing. In triumph, he made a quiet trade with hubris. He mistook clarity for control. Wardenclyffe was meant to sing to the world, a tower pulsing with power and thought. But towers don't run on belief. They run on money. At first, the site buzzed with bricklayers, engineers, reporters. Tesla walked the grounds murmuring about resonance and the Earth's natural frequency, speaking a language halfway between physics and prophecy. Investors began to doubt. Was this engineering or mysticism? Morgan sent letters, then warnings. "How does this make money?" he asked. Tesla answered with visions: free energy, global communication, planetary unity. Morgan folded the letters and stopped answering. The workers vanished. Supplies ran out. The tower stood unfinished, a skeleton humming in the wind. At the same time, Tesla's patents expired. Guglielmo Marconi began broadcasting across the Atlantic using principles Tesla had pioneered. The world hailed Marconi as the father of radio. Creditors closed in, allies drifted away. Tesla moved into the Waldorf Astoria, more debtor than dignitary. The same papers that once called him a wizard now filed him under eccentric. He spoke of death rays, limitless etheric energy, signals from Mars. He was still ahead of his time, sometimes decades ahead. But the world had stopped listening. He began to live by ritual more than recognition. He walked miles every day, fed pigeons in Bryant Park, and claimed he could feel their thoughts. One white pigeon became his closest companion. When it died, he said a beam of white light filled his room, brighter than anything from his lab, and he knew his life's work was done. He was still designing oscillators that could shake buildings, bladeless turbines, wireless images, long before television. But money, trust, and patience were gone. Marconi took the Nobel. Edison took the statues. Tesla, the man who had lit the world, lived in a dim room surrounded by unpaid bills and unopened notebooks. Still, he refused bitterness. He kept talking about the future as if it had already arrived. He described pocket-sized devices that could connect anyone, anywhere, instantly. Reporters laughed. He had described the smartphone. He watched war spread across the world he had wired. Rumors swirled about his death ray. Wardenclyffe was dismantled and sold for scrap. The rooms got smaller. The pigeons multiplied. Meals became charity. The man who bent lightning now lived at the mercy of hotel managers. One winter morning, a maid knocked on room 3327 at the New Yorker Hotel. Silence. Inside, Tesla lay still, a notebook on his chest. In it, a sketch of a new flying machine, lifted by resonance, not engines. The date, January 7th, 1943. He was 86. The pigeons gathered outside the window. The FBI sealed his papers, trunks of formulas and designs they feared might still be dangerous. They called it security. It may have been fear of how far ahead he had seen. Every genius is a cathedral. Every cathedral has its crypt. If the bright nave of Tesla's life was invention, the crypt was ritual. He chased purity like a monk. He rejected touch, counted steps, repeated everything in threes. 3 laps around a block, 18 napkins to polish every utensil, symmetrical tables, precise volumes of water. Pearls made him sick. Loose hair repulsed him. To outsiders, these were quirks. To Tesla, they were ways of tuning his body to an immaculate idea. If the universe was a choir of vibrations, he wanted no discord in the instrument he played through. He chose celibacy, fearing that love would introduce noise into his signal. "I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men," he wrote, half observation, half defense. His relationship with money was just as severe. He could sign away fortunes without blinking. When he tore up his royalty contract, it was ethics as geometry. Profit was asymmetry. He wanted current and goodness to flow without resistance. But purity can become a maze. He began to speak of improving humanity with the same cold confidence he used on circuits. Habits corrected by discipline, bodies purified by restraint, a better human vibration. No cruelty intended, just the dangerous music of certainty. He called businessmen parasites, journalists parasites, sometimes even fellow inventors parasites. He craved recognition, but despised the world that offered it. A public mystic who hated crowds, an ascetic who performed before thousands. Loneliness nested in that contradiction. Si quieres, puedes borrar también este paréntesis de music. The pigeons were not a joke. They were confession. He could cradle a wounded bird for hours, whispering equations like prayers. Intimacy without the mess of human need. Obsession gave him perfect control inside his mind. Machines designed, tested, and corrected in imagination. But it also bred imaginary catastrophes, rehearsed exits, invisible germs on doorknobs, motives behind every compliment. He did not hoard objects. He hoarded possibilities. Notebooks full of futures no one would fund. Paper is the cleanest company. It never answers back. He watched others receive glory for diluted versions of his work. Marconi with radio, Edison with electric mythology. He believed time would fix the record. Time fixed some of it. The rest remained damaged. He turned enemies into archetypes, Edison as doctrine, Morgan as power, the public as fickle field. Opposition became part of his identity, the tension that kept his narrative coil glowing even as his life dimmed. But the deepest shadow is this. Tesla did not just want to free electricity from wires. He wanted to free himself from consequence. A world where energy flows without loss or cost is a world where beauty owes no debt. He wanted circuit-shaped grace, physics that forgives. What is obsession, if not refusing to accept that every light burns something? When the world refused his miracle without payment, he made himself the offering, starving, isolating, purifying, as if his suffering could close the circuit. To the end, he remained disciplined, courteous, immaculately dressed, a uniform of control worn over an unraveling life. We want him to be pure, a saint of science who rejected money and pleasure to keep a flame for us in the dark. We want his hunger to justify our comfort. But there is no perfect exchange where one man's pain becomes everyone else's progress without remainder. In the mirror he leaves, we see clean lines. A man who believed in generosity so fiercely he became impossible to spend. A mind that sought order so completely it could not survive the noise of love. A prophet of abundance who starved himself to keep his prophecy untainted. When you stare into the light long enough, your pupils constrict until all shadows look the same. Tesla never looked away. He won the darkness we fear most, not failure or ridicule, but the silence that comes when you make yourself too pure for the world that needed you. Every light we build casts a shadow behind it. Sometimes that shadow outlives the man who struck the match. Decades after Tesla's death, the world quietly bent into his shape. Alternating current grids spanned continents. Wireless signals leapt invisibly through the air. Voices crossed oceans faster than storms. We live inside the rhythm he heard in his head. But he did not live to see it. He died thinking he had failed, watching others crowned under chandeliers lit by his ideas. The men who opposed him became carved into stone. Edison, industry. Marconi, radio. Morgan, power. Tesla, a half-mad rumor in textbooks, a footnote at the margin of his own age. For years his inventions lay scattered, patents buried, prototypes lost, notebooks locked away. Yet ideas have their own afterlife. They wait, coiled. Our power grids, transformers, motors, wireless systems all hum with his logic. AC, induction, resonance. But his legacy isn't just technology. It's contradiction. In the 21st century, his name returned like a brand and a spell. Tesla, stamped on electric cars, rockets, tech companies, conspiracy theories about forbidden energy. Some worship him as a martyr of corporate greed, others as proof that genius and madness are twins. The truth is quieter and crueler. He didn't fail simply because the world rejected him. He failed because he built a world that could not fit him. He believed in a planet beyond scarcity, energy flowing like thought. But he lived in a century that monetized everything it touched. He dreamed of connecting humanity through resonance, but he could barely connect to another human being without trembling. He freed energy. He never freed himself. He said, "The present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine." The future answered, but with a joke. It gave us his inventions and kept from him the one thing he needed most: belonging. He wanted light without noise, communication without confusion, power without politics, purity in a world made of compromise. That was the real cost. Not poverty, not obscurity, but an ideal too pure for the soil it was planted in. Even now, when we whisper his name, we conjure both sides of a storm, the lightning and the silence that follows. Because greatness is never free. It charges interest in solitude. And Tesla paid in full. He gave humanity the power to conquer the night. In the process, he lost his day. Some storms pass. Others linger in the wires. Tesla's light never really went out. It dissolved into our atmosphere, into every glowing screen, every humming cable, every invisible signal threading the sky. We live in his prophecy. We speak through devices that would have sounded like madness when he first described them. And yet, beneath the global hum, there is still the same silence he died inside. He believed every human being vibrated at a unique frequency, thought as energy, connection without distance. In a sense, he was right. Our world is connected, and rarely in harmony. History labels him genius. The word is too smooth. He was a wound that glowed, a man who glimpsed the architecture of heaven and tried to rebuild it in copper and glass, a spirit who gave the world light and could never find enough darkness to rest. He is the patron saint of the unsatisfied, the protector of every mind that burns too brightly to belong. We invoke him because we still don't know where inspiration ends and isolation begins. To look at Tesla is to look at a magnified version of ourselves. We want what he wanted: control over the forces that shape our lives, connection without pain, progress without loss. But his life leaves us a question, humming beneath everything we've built. Can we hold the lightning without burning ourselves? He gave us tools to banish darkness, but not the wisdom to live kindly in the light. He showed that energy could be free, but not how to free ourselves from greed. He proved invention can make gods of men, and then showed by his own fall how easily gods starve. Every transformer's hum, every pulse of Wi-Fi, every flicker of a street lamp in rain, they're all quiet memorials to a man who believed knowledge should be as common as air. He is gone. The world he dreamed is not. It hums around us, brilliant, indifferent, and strangely lonely. Stand under power lines at night. Listen to that faint buzz that seems to come from nowhere. It is the world speaking in his language, a promise fulfilled, and a warning remembered. Because greatness does not die. It vibrates. It lingers in the silence after applause, in the space between what we build and what we become. This is Shadows of Greatness, where every light leaves a shadow.